In 2025, the world woke up to a shock. The Philippines had overtaken Thailand in the wealth tables. Headlines spread fast. The country once called the sick man of Asia had flipped the script. For the first time in history, the Philippines stood as Southeast Asia's number 2 economy, just behind Indonesia. The numbers were clear. Gross national income hit $518 billion. Thailand slipped behind, and the balance of power in ASEAN quietly shifted. But this was more than just math. For millions of Filipinos, it felt like vindication. Decades of doubt, decades of being dismissed, suddenly turned into proof that the nation could rise. How did this happen? How did a country long behind in industry and wealth suddenly race ahead of one of Asia's biggest players? The story is not only about growth, it is about people. It is about reforms. It is about resilience in the face of crisis after crisis. And now the question is bigger than rankings. Can the Philippines hold this spot, or even climb higher? This is the untold story of how a nation once mocked rewrote the map of Asia. For almost 100 years, Thailand held the second place in Southeast Asia's economy. The Philippines was always behind. Every report, every chart, every ranking, it told the same painful story. Thailand was the winner. The Philippines was the loser. By 2010, the gap became brutal. Thailand's GDP was almost double that of the Philippines. Its factories were roaring. Its exports were rising. Its infrastructure was expanding. And Filipinos were left to carry one heavy label: the sick man of Asia. It was not just about numbers. It was about pride. It was about a nation always told it was lagging behind. But the two countries made very different choices. Thailand doubled down on industry, cars, electronics, machinery. The Philippines turned to something else. Not machines, but people. In Cebu, call centers grew. In Manila, tech offices rose. And around the world, millions of Filipino workers sent billions of dollars home. For years, this was seen as a weakness. A country without big factories, an economy too dependent on its people abroad. But slowly, the tide shifted. Thailand's old engines started to slow. The Philippines' services began to explode. The remittances kept flowing. The outsourcing boom kept rising. The gap began to close. And then, in 2025, something unthinkable happened. The Philippines finally passed Thailand. It became Southeast Asia's new number 2 economy. The long chase was over. The roles had reversed. But one mystery remained. What exactly caused this great turn? One number changes everything: the median age. In the Philippines, it is just 25.7 years. In Thailand, it is almost 40. That gap is not small. It is the difference between a nation full of youth and a nation moving into old age. The Philippines has 116 million people. Thailand has only 72 million. More people, more workers, more energy. It is a workforce edge that reshapes the future. Young Filipinos are not just numbers on paper. They are nurses in London. They are engineers in Dubai. They are coders in Manila. Everywhere they go, they fuel ambition. Every paycheck they send home adds to the nation's strength. But in Thailand, the picture is different. Fewer babies are being born. The population is getting older. Retirements are rising. Hospitals and pensions face heavier burdens. An aging nation slows down. A youthful nation speeds up. This is the silent conflict. One country losing its momentum, the other just beginning to rise. For the Philippines, youth has become its most powerful weapon. It gives the economy energy. It gives the culture confidence. It gives the nation hope. But here lies the tension. Youth alone does not build economies. Young hands need opportunities. Young minds need policies. Without the right decisions, even the strongest generation can be wasted. And that brings us to the next question. What role did policy play in turning youth into true growth? For decades, the Philippines was trapped in a cycle of promises. Big plans were written, but little ever got done. Then something shifted. A wave of reforms began to change the story. The Train Law reshaped taxes. The Create Law cut corporate rates to attract investment. New rules opened more sectors to foreign money. And public-private partnerships fueled fresh projects. The government launched Build, Build, Build. It was more than a slogan. It was roads, airports, railways, and bridges. It was dreams turned into jobs. By 2022, infrastructure spending reached 7.3% of GDP, one of the highest rates in Southeast Asia. New expressways cut hours of travel into minutes. Airports expanded to welcome millions of tourists. Ports moved goods faster than ever before. For the first time in decades, Filipinos could see progress. Concrete, steel, glass. Proof that promises could become reality. But it was not easy. Every reform faced resistance. Old interests fought back. Policy paralysis threatened to freeze the momentum. Yet the reforms kept moving forward. And little by little, the country broke free from the image of being left behind. A nation trapped in delay, or a nation racing ahead through change. The Philippines chose the second path. It built, it reformed, it opened its doors. And in doing so, it unlocked the hidden potential of its own people. But reforms alone cannot keep the engine running. They must feed into the true sources of revenue. And that is where the next chapter begins. In the 1990s, few believed the Philippines could lead in global services. The world saw factories in China. The world saw industries in Thailand. But no one looked at the call centers of Manila and Cebu. Then the quiet revolution began. By 2010, the IT BPO industry was already worth $9.5 billion. By 2024, that number tripled to more than $30 billion. And with it came an army of workers. Almost 1.8 million Filipinos found jobs in the sector. Young voices on headsets became the lifeline of the new middle class. Phones rang in New York. Calls were answered in Quezon City. Banks in London relied on teams in Makati. Healthcare systems in California ran on records handled in Manila. The Philippines had become the back office of the world, but it was more than cheap labor. It was skill. It was scale. It was resilience in a 24/7 economy. The old stereotype that Filipinos were only low-cost collapsed. What replaced it was global value add, financial services, engineering design, healthcare support, even artificial intelligence training. The world outsourced, not because the Philippines was cheap, but because the Philippines was reliable. This was the quiet shift that changed the nation's course. Factories made Thailand strong, but services made the Philippines stronger. Millions of jobs, billions of dollars. A foundation of growth built not on machines, but on the skills of people. And just as services rose, another engine was roaring in the background. The engine of exports. Walk into the export data of the Philippines, and one number stands out. Semiconductors. They make up more than 56% of the nation's total exports. Chips built in quiet factories, shipped across oceans, powering phones, cars, and machines worldwide. For years, the Philippines was known for remittances, but now its factories hum with a different kind of energy. By 2025, global supply chains were shifting. Apple moved $22 billion worth of iPhone assembly into India. But the story didn't stop there. Suppliers also expanded into the Philippines. Industrial parks buzzed with new activity. Workers once tied to farms now stood inside clean rooms, crafting parts for the digital age. It was more than a paycheck. It was dignity. It was a chance to be part of a new global system. From Cavite to Laguna, factories rose where fields once stretched. The economy of services was joined by the economy of chips. But here came the danger. What makes a country strong can also make it fragile. Relying too much on electronics leaves the nation exposed to global shocks. A pandemic, a slowdown in China, a sudden trade war. Any of these could shake the core of this fragile boom. The Philippines stood at a crossroads. Could it diversify its manufacturing base, or would it remain tied to a single shining export? Factories gave power. But the true secret fuel of the Philippines' rise was not built in assembly lines. It was built somewhere else, beyond the factories. For decades, the lifeline of the Philippines did not come from factories or oil. It came from its people. Millions of overseas Filipino workers, nurses, caregivers, engineers, builders left their homes to work abroad. On land, at sea, in hospitals, and in ships. They carried the weight of the nation's survival. By 2024, their total remittances hit $38 billion. That is almost 10% of the country's entire GDP. Every dollar sent back was more than just money. It was food on the table. It was tuition paid for children. It was medicine for parents. It was dreams held together by sacrifice. Fathers worked in deserts so their families could build houses in the provinces. Mothers cared for strangers' children abroad, so their own children could go to school. Seafarers braved storms across the oceans, so their families could have stability on land. This was not just an economic engine. It was a story of blood, sweat, and distance. The Philippines grew stronger at home, but at the price of separation abroad. And yet, this sacrifice carried immense power. Because while GDP measures factories, gross national income measures the people, wherever they are in the world. And those billions in remittances pushed the Philippines above Thailand in the wealth tables. A nation rising, but rising on the backs of its citizens far from home. Growth built on absence, progress built on sacrifice. And this raises a deeper question. Why did remittances matter so much for the rankings? On paper, the Philippines looked smaller. Its GDP in 2024 was $461.6 billion. Thailand still seemed close, its industries steady, its factories holding ground. But then came a different number, GNI, or Gross National Income. And that changed the entire story. For the Philippines, GNI reached $521.8 billion, a leap of almost $60 billion above GDP. That single uplift was enough to push the Philippines past Thailand. It was the difference between third place and second place in Southeast Asia's wealth table. Why the gap? Because GDP measures only what is earned inside a country. But GNI counts its people everywhere. And millions of Filipinos working abroad finally showed up in the nation's numbers. For decades, their sweat fueled families. Now, it fueled national pride. A nurse's salary in New York. A seafarer's pay from Singapore. A coder's contract in Dubai. Every paycheck added weight to the Philippines' climb. This was not just economics. It was recognition. The world had ignored this force for too long. Now the numbers proved it. The Philippines was not weak. It was simply measured the wrong way. Numbers on paper do not mean prosperity on the ground. Families still struggled with rent. Workers still faced low wages at home. Poverty had not disappeared. But in the rankings that the world watches, the Philippines had broken free. And as Thailand slowed, the Philippines carried something its rival could not: momentum. For years, Thailand was the steady performer. Its factories kept running. Its exports stayed strong. But under the surface, the engine began to slow. Growth slipped to just 2 to 2.5% a year. And in the first quarter of 2025, the slowdown was undeniable. Thailand grew only 2%. Meanwhile, the Philippines surged ahead at plus 5.4%. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. But it was a quiet passing of the torch. One country stuck in paralysis, the other fueled by momentum. Thailand's politics froze reforms. The Philippines pushed ahead with infrastructure, outsourcing, and remittance-driven strength. Thailand's population aged. The Philippines stayed young and ambitious. Factories in Bangkok hesitated. Call centers in Cebu expanded. Seafarers kept sending money home. Tech firms kept hiring in Manila. The contrast grew sharper every quarter. Thailand stalled. The Philippines surged. And for the first time, the balance between them broke. This was more than numbers. It was a change in destiny. For decades, Filipinos looked at Thailand as the model. In 2025, they finally looked at themselves and saw a nation capable of leading. The sick man of Asia was no more. Instead, it was a country climbing, while its old rival slowed. Political stagnation on one side, demographic and policy energy on the other. And as the Philippines carried that energy forward, the question became larger. If Thailand stalled and the Philippines surged, then what is the ultimate truth of this new order? By 2025, the Philippines did more than catch Thailand. It reshaped the economic map of ASEAN. A seafarer crossing the Pacific. Each one carried the country forward, and together they flipped the script. From laggard to leader, from mocked to respected, from forgotten to feared, the echo of the hook is clear. The Philippines has rewritten its own story. But the final question remains, if this is the victory of 2025, what could the Philippines become by 2030? For decades, Thailand was the symbol of what the Philippines could never reach. It was the model. It was the standard. It was the rival, always one step ahead. But in 2025, the roles were reversed. The Philippines no longer looked up. It looked forward and found itself in the lead. This moment is proof that national power is never fixed. It is built. It is earned, generation by generation, through sacrifice, reform, and relentless resilience. The map of Southeast Asia has shifted. The sick man has become the new contender, and the story of tomorrow is being written right now. Subscribe for more deep dives into the shocks reshaping our world. It is about reforms. It is about resilience in the face of crisis.